All right, so welcome back to the Collecting Heroes podcast. I am your host, JD, the collector of collectors, if you will, and I talk to pop culture collectors from around the world. And today's guest is a collector who I've already had a conversation with and has been gracious enough to give me her time a second time because, unfortunately, due to technical issues, we lost the audio of our first conversation. It was such a great conversation, and as I've said to her, it's not so much that we lost that getting to know you conversation, but now we're like familiar friends who get to catch up again and have this conversation over again. So thank you very much for being back on the podcast. Can you please raise your wands and give a magical welcome to my next guest, Victoria Maclean. Thank you very much for being on the show again.
Oh, you're very welcome, Penny. It is absolutely lovely being here, even a second time.
Well, we had such a fantastic conversation last time. I think, even like the video that we have, and obviously you and I both screen recorded this because we had technical issues last time when we were trying to record, and it was 70 or more minutes worth of conversation that we had on there. I think only part of that was the episode itself, but we had taken so long to chat even before and after, and I just felt really comfortable talking to you. We had some great conversations, some great laughs, so I'm really happy to talk to you again. And even though, as I mentioned earlier, we might rehash some of the things I've already asked you, and you may have to retell some of the stories for our listeners, I'm still super happy to have you, so thank you very much. Let's start from the beginning, part of the conversation that, as I said, I'm already familiar with, but I'd love for our listeners to know. Tell me a little bit about the story of how Victoria came to be a Harry Potter and a Wizarding World fan. Where did your love for Harry Potter first start?
It started with a book. Obviously in the podcast, they can't really see it, but it started with this Harry Potter Smarties edition book back in 2001. As you can see, JD, it's completely and utterly ruined now because it's been loved
yes.
so much. It really has. But I'm dyslexic. I'd never picked up a book before, to actually like a novel to read it, and I was pregnant with my son, couldn't do anything because obviously the pregnancy was a difficult one, and so I kept hearing about this Harry Potter constantly on a program over here that we have called Blue Peter, and J.K. Rowling was interviewed on the show as well, and I just thought, I love magic. I love kind of the whole idea of magical schools and castles. Even though I was 21, the whole idea of magic was still very much within me. And so I went and I managed to get the book from Waterstones in Telford. It was on a table as I walked in, and it was just shining at me. I just had to go and grab it. And so it took me 2 weeks to get through the book, the most magical 2 weeks of my life at that point, because I'd been transported into this beautiful wizarding world. Wow. And that was kind of where it all started. But of course, you can't go to Hogwarts. We'd love to admit that we can. And so when I started collecting, it was because I wanted to bring Hogwarts to me. And even back then in 2001, even before the films were properly released, companies were still releasing lots of beautiful collectibles that were based on the books, not the films. And so I just started kind of immersing myself in these beautiful magical objects. And it kind of got a little bit obsessive, as you can tell.
And there was a second book, if I remember rightly from our first conversation, that was very dear to you as well when you started collecting, that you were using to collect a lot of pieces. What was that book?
Right. It was the Harry Potter Collectible Guide. And it was released in 2010. There were two. There was one in 2001 that was released. It was a collectible book, but it was very kind of almost immature in a way, but not in like a childish way. It was quite young. But then this book that was this Harry Potter collecting guide that was released in 2010 became my Bible, because it was full of all sorts of beautiful things I had no idea even existed. And I just started kind of using it as my catalogue for what I wanted. So obviously back then in 2010, you could buy loads of things that weren't expensive at all. They were fairly cheap. Go through, find something beautiful, look it up on eBay, and then that was the next thing that arrived in my house. But now it's sadly not as easy as that, because obviously, as you know, prices have just skyrocketed
Yeah.
since that 12 years ago, and prices have tripled, sometimes quadrupled, since that day back in 2010 when I started kind of going through all these books.
And obviously the popularity of the movies really would catapult a lot of the prices of those things that you were getting originally as well. So the things you
Yeah.
collected before, like all the movies were out, would probably, as you mentioned, be a fraction of the cost. And now, you know, they're obviously going up in value a lot more, and hardcore
Well, look,
collectors obviously, you
ama-
know, are willing to pay a lot of money.
this is it. Amazingly, the things that came out pre-filmed, so they were based on the books, they're not worth much at all, sadly. They're because even though they're beautiful, people really want the items that were from the films. So
Oh,
the films have gone up ridiculous amounts of money, but pre-Harry Potter, pre movies, not so much. So it's quite shocking, really, that you can get them for not a bad price.
of those things that you've been collecting over the years, what would you say your favorite item in your collection would be?
I a replica, a mini replica of Dumbledore's office, and it was created by a friend of mine called Valentine's Miniatures, who literally lives up the road from me. He lives in Swansea, and he did a 1/24th, no, 1/12th scale, I think it is, of Dumbledore's office, an almost exact replica in a cabinet. And the detail in this cabinet is just exquisite. Even Warner Brothers themselves have celebrated his work. It's so beautiful.
Mm,
It took 11 months to make this one cabinet. Outside is all 24 karat gold leaf. It's beautiful.
wow.
It's got forks. It's got the telescope that goes on top of his office. His desk is beautifully replicated. And when I bought it, I think I paid about £1,400 for it, but I paid in installments because that's a lot of money for anybody.
Yeah.
It's got a gorgeous little vial of my mum's ashes inside, because my mum sadly passed away 7 years ago, and so Sean was very kind enough to put a little vial inside with her ashes.
Oh, that's lovely.
She's a huge Harry Potter fan.
Nice.
Now it's valued from between 20 to £30,000, the cabinet.
What?
It's ridiculous. It's not even an official item, but it's that detailed and that beautifully made, that it is just incredible how much people are willing to pay for his work. And he doesn't make them to earn money. He does them at cost because he does it as a
Yeah.
hobby.
Yeah. Okay.
And he absolutely loves it. And this cabinet has so much detail. It's his favorite out of all the cabinets he's ever made. That one is his favorite, and it sits in my front room. It is just, every time you look at it, there's something you've missed when you've seen it, when you've looked in it previously. It's beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
So if you were to have to, you know, scale your collection down, would that be one of the things that you would definitely be keeping and using it maybe as a place to display some of the other pieces
Oh,
within?
I've even said to my children that when I go, they can sell any one of my items,
But not that.
but that cabinet has to stay in the family. Because,
Ah,
I mean, one of his cabinets, I have two of his cabinets. I did have four, but I've downsized my collection. But his work it's exquisite. It's you can't you as much as miniature items are beautiful, there's some miniatures that don't look like the real thing. They look like miniatures. They look
yeah.
like they're just doll houses. This looks like you would expect Dumbledore just to start walking up the steps or
Oh,
something. It's
wow.
so beautifully done, so beautiful.
And talking about that, when you talk about, you know, getting rid of some of the pieces in your collection, and we're talking about your collection, people may not be familiar with you. Some listeners may be, but for anyone who's not familiar with Victoria, she actually, one of the reasons I found her and wanted to have her on the podcast is that she, at one point, was the Guinness World Record holder for, and let me get this right, Wizarding World memorabilia, right? Not Harry Potter collectors,
There,
like Wizarding World memorabilia. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. I had 3,686 items
Jeez.
back 3 years ago. And now I would never do the record again, ever. It was so much hard work. But I now have over 1,000 items. because I'm obviously as a Wizarding World YouTuber, I get sent so much every week to share with people that my house is just behind the
7,000.
chaos.
7,000. Wow. That's such a huge amount. And we spoke about this last time as well, and you just touched on it. The fact, I remember asking you, would you consider going after the record again? Because now it's held by a woman by the name of Tracy Nicole Lewis, who has over 5,000 pieces, is the official record. And as you said, you've got 7,000. So last time I asked you about that and said, would you do it again? You said definitely not. It was such a headache, such a long, drawn out process. Tell people a little bit about that process and how you had to go about getting this record. Let's start from the beginning. Let's start from when you first found out about the record, who had it before you, and then the process that you went through to get that record.
I found out about the record. There's a gentleman called Asher in Mexico who holds the record for the largest Harry Potter collection. And I think his was something like 2,000 or just over 3,000. And I thought, oh, I can beat that. I could do that. But when I counted it, I have as much as him. And so I waited a few years, and then because he had the record for a long time.
Yeah.
And then I thought, you know what, I'm gonna start. I think I just started my degree, my film and TV degree, and I thought, I've got some spare time before I start uni. I've got a couple of weeks, I'll start photographing everything. I think it was something like 8 months later, I finally finished photographing everything. Because when you do the record, first of all, you've got to apply to do the record. You can't just send your items in. You have to apply and give them a rough date you want to do the record. So I photographed. I got the approval. I started photographing everything, every single item, all official. Have to do it all official. No unofficial items can be counted, and you can't buy a pack of cards with different pictures on them, because they're a pack of cards that has to be counted as one item, not individual items.
So if you had 4 packets of cards with each house on them, for example, that would only count as one item. Is that right?
If you had 4 packs cards with 52 cards in each pack, then that's counted as 4 packs, 4 items.
Okay, I get what you mean. It's not 52 items, obviously. You can't. Yeah. I get what you mean. Yeah.
If you had, I bought a pack of, when you buy those sticker books that you buy 5 stickers at a time. You can count that as individual because you can buy them separately. Yep. So if you can go up and buy an item separately or in a pack, that means you can it's very complicated, but that means you can as individual. So obviously after I photographed everything, then you have to catalog everything individually. Then you have to either have somebody come to your own property, as well as some members of the public, to view your collection in full, or you can pack your items up, take them to a location nearby, a public location.
Which is what you did.
Which is what I did, put them all on display, and then the members of the public are invited to come and see it to prove that it's genuine. Then you have to have 2 approved people that either you've chosen or Guinness have chosen to count your items. And it's all got to be filmed. Everything's got to be filmed in one go. Then you have to send all that proof off to Guinness. And the people who have counted it have to fill out a list of questions that they're asked by Guinness as well. You have to have headed letters from these people that you've chosen.
Those 2 people can't be someone from your family either, or someone it has to be someone who's an impartial sort of person. Is that right?
He was a professional seller and collector. So he was a reverend, which really helped because obviously, they are trusted. So he head collector. And then my other person I had obviously had to be approved by Guinness was Sean Valentine, who made my Dumbledore's office cabinet because he's in the industry. Yeah. So those 2 people, they were filmed, counted every single item individually. It took 3 days to do. And then all of that information has to be sent to Guinness. And then it's between 3 and 5 months wait to find out if you've been awarded your Guinness World Record. But because the BBC were helping me, they actually got them to do it quicker. So I actually had the BBC nagging them, do you have a result? I haven't got the record yet.
We filmed
And
this and we want to put it on TV and announce it.
that,
Yeah.
we've got a time schedule here. But they messaged me to say that we can't award you the Harry Potter record because you have Harry Potter, Fantastic Beasts, and Cursed Child in your collection, which I already asked them, and that was fine. But they said we can award you the Wizarding World record, which was created for me.
Oh, so you were officially the first person to hold that record. Okay.
Would have had to have gone through Warner Brothers and J.K. Rowling to be allowed to use that title. So it was crazy that they had to go through that to allow me to have the record of Wizarding World Collector. So I was I found out on my birthday as well, the morning of my birthday. Perfect. And I screamed so loudly that my son came running down, my youngest, who's named Harry after Harry Potter. He just completely was just over the moon. Then we both just screamed around the house and filmed it because we were just so happy. Because obviously because I'd been following my progress for my YouTube channel as well. And so even though it was absolutely incredible, as an autistic girl, it was incredibly hard for me to follow the paperwork they needed me to follow, the list of things they needed me to put into place, the way they had to have it, because you had to have it in certain ways. It was so hard, but I did it. I achieved it. I did it. I'm in the book twice and I'm happy. So
perfect. And actually, I think if I remember correctly, from our original conversation, you were an avid reader of Guinness World Record books as a child growing up because of, being dyslexic. They were sort of, something easier for to read at the time and a bit more interesting with the pictures and the descriptions and things like that.
Exactly. Right? For me every Christmas. And I remember saying to her, I'm going to be in the Guinness World Record one day, Mum. I'm going to be in it. I'm going to be in it. I didn't know how. I had no idea how. I didn't know what I was going to be in it for. But I knew that was when I was young. I knew that was one of the goals I wanted to achieve, and I achieved it twice. So I'm really happy.
That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing, and I love that. And also, the local rugby club, I think it was, gave you their hall to put all the things in. How many trips did it take? Like, how did you transport 3,600 plus pieces? How do you go about transporting that all to a venue? Like, how many car trips? Like, do you hire a truck? What did you do?
No, I had a 7-seater car, and it must have been nine trips. And it was crazy because my house was empty after I did it, after I took everything out.
Yeah.
Because I was so close to sleeping up there, because I didn't finish till God knows what time in the morning. I was so tired because you have to lay it out individually in the sections it will be in for them to count. So even though the hall was fairly big, it wasn't big enough for my collection. So I was using the tables, the chairs, the floors, the stage, the windowsills, anything put my collection on, I would find some way of putting it on. They even lent me tables from the rooms in the other part of the rugby club, because there was no room for my collection. And that was when it was, it's over double again now. So I'd need a huge venue if I was going to do it again. And I can only one venue, and I dread to think how much that would cost to hire. So
that's money you could be spending on more things for your collection.
Exactly right. Day to transport things back and forth, because luckily the rugby club is only up the road, so it was literally 5-minute drive, but it was back and forth, and then of course packing everything up, do it back and forth. It just took so long to do. It was crazy, absolutely crazy, just mental.
Yeah, no, I mean, that sounds like it. And I mean, what, 9 trips in a 7-person, like a minivan or whatever it is, like that's basically like moving house almost, like with that many. Which leads me to my next question: how do you go for space within your house? Like, how big is your house that you now house 7,000 pieces? Where do you put it all?
Oh, my house isn't big. We live in a 3-bedroom semi-detached house. So we haven't got a big house, but if you come into my home from the outside, my house looks like any normal semi-detached house, normal family home, no hints of Harry Potter outside at all. And then you walk in and it just hits you like a brick. It is just crazy because every cupboard, drawer, wardrobe, under the bed, box, trunk, attic, every single nook and cranny, box you see is full of items. And I'm not good at hiding it all. So at the moment, as I said, the other side of the camera is chaos. So it's just mental. And I've just started doing Disney merchandise on my channel as well. So I've got Disney as well.
No, stop. Just don't do it. Don't go down that path. Look, I love Disney as well, but like, if you're going to be collecting Wizarding World and Disney, you're gonna have to tell your husband to take up a second job because you're gonna need another mortgage for another house. Like, there is too much Disney stuff. There's too much. Please stop, Victoria. Don't do it.
Oh, crazy. I mean, my friend came over, my social media manager came over last year, and she looked at the wall behind the camera and she said, you know what? She said, you could fill this with shelves to make more room. And
enabler.
She did it. I ordered the shelves and it just gave me more of an excuse to get more items.
Well, I mean, obviously, she's got a vested interest, right? As your social media manager, she needs you to keep reviewing things. She needs you to keep putting out content. So I get it. I get it. Like, I see where she's coming from here. But I think I remember, if I remember rightly from our first conversation, she also gets a little bit of perks of sometimes when you're reviewing things and you get sent things, she sometimes gets to take some of those items as well. Exactly. Is she a Disney fan? Is she the one that reached out and got them to get the things?
I'm the Disney fan. She is a Dobby fan.
Oh.
She is a huge Dobby fan. So I did a review of Muckle Mannequin's life-size Dobby, which I don't even know how much they cost. They're not cheap. That?
Life-size? Like, how was that, 4 foot? How old is he?
He's about 3.5 foot, but then he's got a really amazing base as well.
Okay.
He's a proper kind of, it's an official item, and Muckle Mannequins does the most amazing replicas. I know you're a big Batman fan.
Yeah, of course.
And he does the new Robin Pattinson Batman with the mask. Oh my life.
Fantastic movie. Yeah.
Wasn't it just?
Yes.
I love but he does all of those, and Dobby is just a wonderful addition to his artwork. And he sent me one to unbox. And of course, Janice had to take it home, didn't she? So I get to see him play him. So she got the perk of having him she took him home. So she was very happy.
Well, look, I mean, given the amount of space that you have in your place and how many things you have, I mean, a 4 foot statue is probably something. She probably did you a favor, I'd say, by taking that.
I think she did, yeah.
And actually, let's go back to a point that you made, or something you mentioned earlier, in regards to your film degree. Tell me a little bit about your film degree and how does that factor in with your love of Harry Potter and the Wizarding World as well?
I'm really lucky because my lecturers have allowed me to use my YouTube channel as my work. So nice. Even film degree, which I'm very proud of myself, I got a distinction in my second year, so I'm very happy about that. So I'm hoping in my last year, which is this one, and they've allowed me to kind of immerse my love of Harry Potter into my film degree. So almost everything I've talked about has been about Harry Potter and my YouTube channel, and they're so appreciative of it. They're even thinking of changing the film and TV degree to film and social media degree because of the fact that they have a YouTuber who's working on her work there, and it's kind of they're moving into the 21st century because people are really kind of focusing on
Victoria, you're a woman of change. They changed the name of things in the Guinness World Record. They're now going to change the name of your degree. Look at you. You're affecting change in the world as well as bringing happiness to other collectors.
But I'm really lucky. My last piece has been about filming. I wanted to do my last piece of work on filming locations, Harry Potter filming locations.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of allowed to go to these filming locations and film for my degree, Harry Potter filming locations. And of course, the last place that I did was the Real for Privet Drive.
If I
So
watched that video today, yes.
that exactly. So that is part of my final pieces for my degree. So hopefully I will graduate in July, and then I'll move on to my master's, which won't be as easy. I think they might make it a little bit harder for me, unfortunately.
Well, I mean, you're obviously very dedicated. Anyone who can collect that many pieces, who can take the better part of a year or so to, get themselves in the Guinness World Record and then go through and get distinctions already in their degree. I'm sure if you really wanted to do the masters and put your head to it, that you could do that.
Yay.
Yeah. And actually, another thing that we spoke about, I know that your film degree is one thing, obviously, that you do, but you have a bit of a family connection as well with your children. Sort of, there's a little bit of a film or movie kind of legacy that's happening as well.
Yeah. I started. I worked on. I've been on set as an extra for years, and I stopped doing that because the money was terrible. But then my daughter decided she wanted to do media in college, and so she did very well. She I don't know what marks she got. I think she got a pass because there was a problem with her last piece, but that was to do with the lecturers, not her.
Let's just say she got an A.
Pardon?
We'll just say she got an A. We'll just say she.
Exactly. She got an A. She got an A.
Yeah.
And she kept being asked, or sorry, she was invited to go to London for a week with, I can't remember what it's called. It's something to do with film, and it's like an introduction to the film world, as in working on set and that kind of aspect.
Mm-hmm.
And she got an award for the best person that week. And then a few months later, she kept getting these emails from this company saying that they wanted her to apply for this job, something to do with locations. And she came downstairs and she said, Mum, she said, I keep getting these emails about to apply for this job and I don't know what to do. And I said, you got to try.
Yeah.
Even if you get it, Monica, you've just got to try. Don't hold back. Do it,
100%.
And it turned out that it was for Star Wars, working on The Last Jedi.
Wow.
And it wasn't The Last Jedi. It was The Rise of Skywalker. Sorry, the last
the
one.
final one of the series.
The final one. Yeah. And she was working on locations. She got the job, and now she's worked on some of the biggest films out there, including the new Little Mermaid film, where she was working. She worked in Sardinia for 6 weeks. She watched the entire film. She's going to be in the credits. She's now working on the new Snow White Disney film, and she now works for Disney. So in London, in Pinewood. So it's kind of crazy how she went into media in college, and then did something right because she was noticed by these people. They kept nagging her to try for this job, and now she's earning the most amazing amount of money, which is mental, and she's loving her job. She's working the job that she could only dream about at the age of 23.
Well, that's worth more than all that money, right? Like, I mean, the fact that you can do a job you love and something that you're passionate about, especially something like that can bring, like, working on movies that bring joy to millions of people worldwide, especially like a large franchise like Star Wars. And when you talk about Snow White, was it Snow White you said just a second ago?
Snow White.
Yeah, sorry, yeah. So, I mean, these are things that are synonymous in pop culture, right? And to be a part of that, like you said, that's the dream. I'm jealous, but I'm also extremely happy for her. And if she's doing any work on any future Batman movies, obviously, you have to hook me up there. So we've already had that discussion.
We have. When she was Star Wars, we actually got to go on Star Wars set for the day, and we went on the Millennium Falcon, and we met Chewie, and we met R2-D2, and it was just, It was crazy. My husband's a massive Star Wars fan, so for him it was crazy because the stormtroopers that were there all dressed up, they allowed you to play with the guns, so they hand them. You could pretend to fire them and do things on set, and it was so surreal. It was just mental. Even I'm not a massive Star Wars fan, but even I could fully appreciate that.
Oh, 100%. I mean, well, that'd be like you, I guess, if you got to be on set, for the last Wizarding World movie or something, like,
That,
for the Dumbledore movie, which I haven't seen yet. So
oh,
but I know I've heard that it's a good movie as well, and I've heard good things, and I really am looking forward to seeing that one eventually as well. I mean, that's another place. You talk about these things on these film sets. The Wizarding World places within Universal, the Wizarding World places within Universal Studios. I've been to a couple of those. I've been to the one in LA, and I've been to the one in Tokyo as well, and they're fantastic. I absolutely love them. Do you spend a lot of time traveling and going to places like that and visiting? Those as well as the film sets. Do you get to visit places like that as well?
I do. I've been to the London studio, the Harry Potter studio tour in Watford in
Mhm.
London. I've been my 31st visit in 2 weeks.
Ah,
So even though it's not the Wizarding World in Florida, Tokyo, California and that sort of thing,
yeah.
it's where they filmed it. So for me, that is the number one place around.
It's got
Uh,
Diagon Alley, right?
it's got Diagon Alley, it's got Gringotts, it's got the Forbidden Forest, it's got Platform 9 3/4, it's got the Great Hall. It is the most amazing, immersive experience you could ever ask for. No matter how many times you go, there's always something you haven't seen before.
You're making me jealous, Victoria. 30 visits there. My work is I'm very fortunate. They're actually going to fly me over to London. I'm going over there in just over a week's time. And unfortunately, I couldn't get tickets. It was booked 2 months in advance or something. So, I mean, maybe, you can speak to someone now. Of course not. But like, that's amazing. Like, obviously, if I had Warner Brothers studio down the road that had, like, the streets of Gotham or something, I'm sure I would be there all the time as well.
Why haven't they done that yet? I mean, I know that you'll go to London and you'll think, oh my God, okay, I can see where there's like rubbish on the floor and things. That's very Gotham. But why haven't they done that yet? You'd expect them to do something like that, surely. To
Well, I
recreate
mean, they have
downtown.
here in Australia. There's actually a theme park called Warner Brothers Movie World on the Gold Coast. Ironically, I guess you could call me a bad Batman fan here, but I've never been there because it is in another state. But it is somewhere I intend on going, and I'm thinking about taking my nieces there one day because they live in Queensland. I thought it'd be a perfect excuse to go and see them and take them to down there. But
Exactly.
for years, they've had Batman rides, but they also had Batman shows, I think, stunt shows and things, and they've like a Batmobile. You could get photos with the Batmobile. They had for years there. They had Catwoman, like the Michelle Pfeiffer style Catwoman, as well as
Way.
like sort of, I think, familiar. I'm trying to think. Is either like the Michael Keaton style sort of Batman or that Joel Schumacher from the Batman Forever kind of Batman. I don't think they went the total George Clooney nipples version of Batman, but they have a lot of stuff there, and I've had friends that have gone there, and they're like, "You really should go there one day because you'll love it." And I have had it on my list of things that I want to visit, and as I said, I might get to use my nieces as an excuse to do that as well. But
That's
yeah, no. So they do have that, and when I was in LA, I went to the Warner Brothers studio there as well, and they do a studio tour. And part of that studio tour was a massive warehouse that contains all the Batmobiles. And one of my favorite things about Batman is the Batmobile. I love the different vehicles they've had throughout the years, starting right from back in the '66 version, all the way through to now this muscle car version that they did for the Robert Pattinson
cool.
one. My favorite, obviously, being the Michael Keaton one. I think that is a beautiful, iconic
The
Batmobile.
when he presses the button, all this like armor comes over it.
Yes, yeah, that's
That,
right. Yeah, it's got the armored. That's right. Yeah, it's got the armored version exactly, and that's probably my favorite version. But they had all the different style Batmobiles when I went over there in 2018 in this warehouse, and they had all the different vehicles. They had the Tumbler. They had lots of those vehicles, and that was amazing. When I was there with the tour guide, because they only give you a short amount of time in there, I'm like, can we just get 5 more minutes? I just want 5 more minutes to look at these things. I was literally wearing a Batman shirt with like the Velcro cape on the back because I'm like was so excited to be at the Warner Brothers, tour, and because I knew I was going to see those vehicles, and I was like, mega fan here. I really want to just have 5 more minutes, and they did. They gave me 5 more minutes, so I was very
Oh,
happy for that. But,
oh wow.
yeah, so there are versions of that, but I think they're more to do with like the theming and a lot of it's sort of to do with the kids, so that they can get them in and get photo ops. But yeah, I absolutely, going back to the Wizarding World stuff, I love visiting the Wizarding Worlds. I love the immersive going into the Wizarding World in Tokyo and LA. They're very much similar in the way that they've created them, but just you feel it. You feel when you walk in there, and you can feel like you're actually within the movie. Butterbeer, one of my favorite drinks. I've always got to get butterbeer when I'm there as well.
You have to have the ice cream because the ice cream is my favorite butterbeer ice cream.
Wow, I don't think I've had butterbeer ice cream. No, I've had the butterbeer, the cold version, which is my favorite. There's a hot version, which I found to have a bit more of a spice to it.
I didn't hot version.
They do like a hot version. And then in Japan they had pudding, like a butterbeer pudding, almost like a custody gelatin style pudding that you can eat. So that was pretty good as well. Yeah, and there's places that you can get manufacturers that make what they deem as like versions of butterbeer, but it's not the same thing. So I've got to wait to get back to Tokyo. Hopefully, I'm hoping to go next year if I can, and get back there and actually have some more butterbeer, because I always have multiple cups whenever I'm there. I'm always like, yep, multiple servings of butterbeer because I just love it.
But I tell you what, if you've missed out on tickets at the moment in Covent Garden in London, I think it is open next week as well.
Yeah,
you can the photographic experiences, but it's you don't have to pay to go in. They've got the giant ones on display in Covent Garden, the official ones. They've got a butterbeer selling a kind of a truck outside selling butterbeer.
You're kidding. This is amazing. I've got to have to do it.
But yeah, they've got all that going on as just like a celebration of Secrets of Dumbledore. So, and you might just catch it. So I'll have to send you the link for it.
All right, I'm definitely you're gonna have to send me some more details of that and our DM.
Oh, yeah.
Let me know where I've got to go, because I'm definitely going to check that out. If I can get butterbeer, then that's going to make my trip all that much more.
Oh, yeah.
Look, I've taken plenty of your time. I've had a wonderful time chatting with you, as always. Like last time, we had such a great conversation, and I just feel we can talk and laugh together, and you're such a friendly person. You've been so gracious in giving me your time a second time as well. You've always been really delightful to speak to whenever we message each other as well. So thank you very much. But before I let you go, can you just let people know where can they find you and where can they go to follow you, especially for Harry Potter fans?
Yes, any Harry Potter's Fantastic Beasts fans, you can find me under Victoria Maclean on YouTube, Victoria Maclean on Instagram, Victoria Maclean on TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, and on Facebook we have a big Harry Potter UK page as well, which is for any Harry Potter fan. And we don't just do it about me, we do it about all things Harry Potter Wizarding World. We also put loads of like little secret kind of things if you find things in the shops. So like cheap stuff like Primark. People go crazy for Primark. Mm-hmm. So come on Harry Potter UK as well. So I'm everywhere on Google.
Excellent. Well, I'll make sure to put some links in the podcast description as well. And as usual, for people, if they want to follow Collecting Heroes, they can find me on Instagram as well at Collecting Heroes. Victoria was nice enough to send me some photos, as most of my guests do, so that you can actually see a few photos of her collection. But if you really want the full experience, go and check out her social media, check out her YouTube channel, so you can see all of this amazing collection. So, Victoria, once again, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I've had a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me, darling.
If you liked the episode, please consider following or subscribing wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can also join me on Instagram at Collecting Heroes, where you can see photos of the collections of the people that I'm talking to, as well as some of my own.